And for Rabbi Yossi, would you please join me in thanking Father Eustace for his faithfulness in coming and offering morning prayers this year? Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, would you please call the roll?
Senators Aguilar. Aguilar.
Oh, that's how it's going to be today. Excused.
Baumgartner. Cook. Quorum. Court. Crowder. Donovan. Benberg. Fields. Garcia. Gardner. Guzman. Hill. Holbert. John. Jones. Kagan. Kafalis. Kerr. Lambert. Lumberg. Marble. Martinez Humenic. Merrifield. Moreno. Neville. Priola. Scott. Smallwood.
Excused.
Sonnenberg. Tate. Todd. Williams. Zenzinger. Smallwood. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Donovan, would you please come and lead us in the pledge?
Colleagues and guests, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we amend the journal of Friday, May 4th, 2018 to reflect that no business was done on that day.
Senator Gardner, please continue. The floor is yours.
I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong script, Mr. President. I withdraw that motion, and I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of Friday, May 4th, 2018, and that it be approved as corrected by the Secretary of the Senate and her most capable staff.
You have heard the motion. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, the motion is adopted. Conference committee reports.
First report of First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 85 to the President of the Senate and Speaker, House of Representatives. Your First Conference Committee appointed on Senate Bill 85 concerning providing financial incentives for educators to work in rural areas in connection with making appropriations met and reports as agreed upon the following. The Senate is see the House amendments made to the bill as the amendments appear in the revised bill with the following changes. Respectfully submitted. Senate Committee, Sonnenberg Chair, Gardner, Todd. House Committee, McLaughlin Chair, Arndt, and Wilson. First report on First Conference Committee on House Bill 1155 to the President of the Senate and Speaker, House of Representatives. Your First Conference Committee appointed on House Bill 1155 concerning continuation of physical therapy board in connection therewith implementing the recommendations contained in the 2017 Sunset Review and report by the Department of Regulatory Agency has met reports as agreed upon the following that the Senate received from the amendments is made to the bill as the amendments appear in the revised bill and that the following amendments be substituted therefore. Respectfully submitted. House Committee, Singer Chair, Liston and Janal, Senators Martinez Humenic Chair, Kafalis and Cook.
Appointment of Second Conference Committee. The House voted to reject the First Conference Committee report and request that the Second Conference Committee be appointed for Senate Bill 15. Gardner will be the chair, along with Hill and Senator Kagan. Senate Services.
Correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 272. Correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 258, 270, 273, 274, and 275. Correctly revised. House Bill 1309. Correctly re-revised. House Bill 1004, 1006, 1020, 1083, 1185, 1136, 1190, 1217, 1218, 1224, 1234, 1244, 1251, 1255, 1287, 1294, 1299, 1306, 1316, 1319, 1343, 1349, 1350, 1353, 1356, 1357, 1363, 1366, 1369, 1373, 1385, 1393, 1394, 1398, 1400, 1405, 1407, 1410, 1411, 1412, 1413, and 1429. Correctly enrolled. Senate Bill 16, 38, 39, 163, 167, 203, 219, 230, 233, and 266.
Sold. Message from the reviser.
We herewith transmit without comment as amended Senate Bill 86.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for extended moments of personal privilege so that members of the Senate may recognize outgoing members with tributes.
Question before us is to move out of order for extended moments of personal privilege to recognize outgoing members. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate suspend Rule 31.
Question before us is to suspend Rule 31. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 31 is suspended. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate suspend Rule 16B, which would allow members to reference other members by name during the tributes.
Question before us is to suspend Rule 16B. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Say no. The ayes have it. 16B is suspended. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, members, we will take up tributes to outgoing members. And I don't know if there is a preference between the two members, but we can take them. We will begin with the good senator from El Paso County, Senator Merrifield. Senator, if you have family or friends, they are welcome to join you in the well. That is Rule 31, which has been suspended. And this is a rarity for those watching on the Colorado Channel. Non-members are by rule not allowed in the well, but we have suspended that rule so that not only can we honor outgoing members, but also offer thanks to family members who are so supportive to members who serve here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Did that rule suspend for staff that is also family members? I'm just checking on Michael down there. Senator, Mr. Minority Leader Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. May the commencement start for the great senator from El Paso County, Mr. Mike Merrifield. We want to read this proclamation tribute recognizing your hard work. The Colorado State Senate convened in the second regular session of the 71st General Assembly hereby extends the heartiest congratulations and commendations to Senator Michael Merrifield. Senator Michael Merrifield was elected to serve in the 64th, 65th, 66th, 67th, 70th, and 71st General Assembly, where he represented fellow citizens with honor and dignity. During his tenure with the Senate, he served with distinction as a member of the Education, Judiciary, Wildfire Matters Review, and School Finance Committees, as well as Early Childhood and School Readiness Legislative Commission.
While serving in the Senate, Senator Merrifield was elected by his peers as the Senate Minority Whip from 2017 to 2018. The citizens of Colorado and the members of the Senate express gratitude for his exemplary service to our great state and wish him well in his future endeavors. Given this 7th day of May 2018, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, signed Kevin J. Grantham, President of the Senate. Michael, hold it up and let's turn around and maybe get a few pictures here. Pictures over there.
Am I supposed to say something?
You're last.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will start out by admitting that when Senator Merrifield served in the House, and members feel free to be seated, you don't have to stand for me, I didn't have much like for him. There were views on schools, particularly charter schools, that we didn't agree on. And I've said before, we both ran for the Senate in 2014, and if anyone had told me that I would work closely together with Senator Merrifield or even count him as a friend in 2014, I would have said, that's not true. That's not going to happen. But here on the 118th day of the 2018 session, the second regular session of this General Assembly, the second assembly that Senator Merrifield and I have been able to work together here in a 4-year period in this chamber, I'm here to tell you and the people of Colorado, I'm proud to serve with him, and I do count him as my friend. When we came in together in 2015, Senator Merrifield and I worked together on a variety of legislation. We found agreement on parental rights when it comes to opt-out with annual assessments. We found agreement on reducing the frequency of those assessments. And more recently, we have found agreement in encouraging districts, encouraging schools and teachers out there to embrace fine arts, performing arts, music. The political differences that we struggle with in campaigns, and probably more so in the contentious House than here in the upper chamber, ought not divide people who see things differently. And Senator Merrifield and I have found many occasions to disagree. But I know Michael, I know Senator Merrifield better now than I did as an observer in the House or then as a member in the House. He's an avid mountain biker. He cares passionately about educating kids. And I'm grateful, I've talked before about teachers that made impacts in my life. And I know that there's a long line of people, adults out there today, who would look back, and again, that way that we might celebrate teachers who impact our lives. There's a long line of people out there who are pursuing degrees or careers all over the country, probably all over the world, who probably look back to some word, encouragement, lesson that their teacher, Mr. M., Mr. Merrifield, offered. And I'm grateful for the past 4 years and the lessons that I've learned from someone who very often sees things differently than I. But what magic there is when we find agreement. Senator, I'm grateful for these 4 years and wish you the very best in your private endeavors after the state Senate. Thank you.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I have to say, for me, it's been quite the honor to serve with my esteemed colleague, Senator Merrifield. I come to know him a little bit because our districts are so close. Of course, he's in El Paso, and I'm down in Pueblo, and especially got to know him a little more as I realized he spent a lot of his weekends down at Lake Pueblo bicycling and enjoying the outdoors. I could say, well, I never served on a committee with him. I know he's been in education. Several of those committees that were mentioned, I haven't had the chance to work with him in that capacity. I've always appreciated the great love he has for music. I myself was a music major, play piano. I know he is a music teacher and is just so passionate about the arts and the science and music. And I think that's one of the things that really helped me when I was in high school and through middle school, is to have that venue when sports wasn't an option, to be able to be involved in band and orchestra. And I think of educators like Senator Merrifield, who are so passionate about that and what that means for capturing that in the classroom, and why so many students return to the classroom day after day because they look forward to a performing arts concert. And so I greatly appreciate all the investment you've had for the passions that you've worked so hard for in the state of Colorado, and I hope that you know that is recognized, sir.
Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. President. You know, I think Senator Merrifield is still working to get back at his students after all these years on Ed Committee. And I know when it's going to happen after 4 years, I know someone will be up, they'll be testifying on a bill, or it'll be a bill sponsor speaking. And I know, instinctively now, after 4 years on Ed Committee, I know there's about a half a second lapse between someone saying something and I say, half a second here before Senator Merrifield's hand is going to go up, just like this. I mean, ready to go. He's like that kid about to come out of his seat because he's got the answer to something, or he's got something to say. And it's just antsy over here to speak up on something. And I love the energy. We know it's going to happen. I love the energy that you bring, sir. I know at other times, I'll be asking if I always have the same line. Are there any comments or questions, before we let the witnesses go? And I always can tell you're shifting in your seat a little bit awkwardly. You're leaning forward, you'll adjust the microphone a little bit. I know when you want to say something too, and those are the times that Senator Merrifield, I know you've got something, and there always is. There's something there, and it's built on this idea of what it means to teach, what it means to invest in our students' lives, what it means to pour yourself and your worldview and your vision for what a healthy, successful, flourishing life looks like, to pour that into students. And there's not a week that goes by that there's not someone who comes to that committee and you taught them, or you taught in their school district, or there was a connection that you have through a mutual friend. And we see that web of influence and that web of speaking goodness, truth, and beauty into people's lives. And despite the political differences, there is still a deep sense of you have invested, you have poured yourself into Colorado and to Colorado's people, and Colorado is better because of not just your service here, but your decades of service before here. And so it has been an honor to serve with you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I want to tell you about the time I first heard the name Representative Merrifield. It was before I was elected, and I was listening to a certain radio show working at our greenhouse, and there was some kerfuffle about an email. I can't remember the details of it, but I never forgot the name from that point on. I have really enjoyed working with Senator Merrifield now. I think we disagree on almost everything, except for we're both passionate about children and education. But I really admire his dogged determination and passion for his issues and what he brings to the table. And you will be missed, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Zenzinger.
Well, I've only known Mike the 2 years that we've served on the Education Committee. It turns out that I actually am the only person in this room who actually had Senator Merrifield as a music teacher. So, back in 1981, in Olathe, Colorado, and I had to do some digging to figure this out because I had a suspicion. He told me a while ago that he taught during that time in that area. And I thought, really? Are you sure? Because that's when I was there. So I called up my dad. My dad had to go into the archives of the Olathe Elementary Library. And we dug up the picture. And sure enough, I had Senator Merrifield as my music teacher in Olathe. And what I remember from that year, I unfortunately don't remember Senator Merrifield. What I remember is he taught us the 12 Days of Christmas. It was the first time that I had ever become familiar with that song, and it was a really big feat to learn it because there was a lot of memorization that's involved in that song. But not only did we perform it as to the whole school and our parents, but we acted it out too. So we had different people that would come out and do the different parts of the 12 Days of Christmas. And I was one of your maids of milking, just so you know. it was impactful. And the reason why it was impactful is because what Mike does, what he's given to his students, what he's given to Colorado, what he's given to education, is that deep, passionate commitment to the arts and how they do make an impression on the people that are receiving that education. It was a big deal to learn the 12 Days of Christmas. It's something that has stuck with me my entire life. And that's what I most enjoy about Senator Merrifield, is his passion, his dedication, really, truly to understanding how important the arts are, how they are important to children, in how they view the world. It's what gives them their spark. It's what makes them care about being in the world and being a part of it. It energizes their learning. It makes them better learners. And the fact that Senator Merrifield has been such a passionate advocate for all these many years and translated that passion into policy, into making sure that what we do for students as a legislative body is going to actually get to the students. And I just so much admire that, and thank you very much for your service.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And so here we are, Michael, on your final week of being in the Colorado legislature. When we first became acquainted, it was in 2005 when I was first elected. And I really came in pretty green as a legislator. I didn't really know and understand quite what things were going to do and be and what it was going to look like. But it didn't take very long to realize that we took the majority and that Michael Merrifield was going to get to chair the House Education Committee. And I thought, well, that's nice. You know, what does that really mean, and how's that going to work? You know, don't we all work together? I mean, I've always believed in that, and it was a great way of being able to see his leadership rise. It was a great way to see how he pulled us together to always put children first. And I think that was a message that really resonated from Senator Merrifield, even back when we were in the House. We worked on key issues. We continued to work on making sure that all children across the state would be given viable opportunities, particularly in music and the arts. And he started that fight then. And he started really working on, and I recognized something in him that went beyond just that he was a teacher, but that he was filled with compassion. And he was filled with compassion to make sure that the people and the children that he worked with, whether it was fellow teachers or students, knew and understood that they were valuable. And his message was loud and clear to us as members on the committee, in the caucus. I walked with Michael through a difficult time when he was fighting cancer. And I can remember we would be on the floor, and all of a sudden it was, where's Michael? And he had to leave and go and rest, but he didn't leave the Capitol. He stayed and he ran through with tenacity to continue serving. Then when I came to the Senate, it was kind of like an emptiness. It was like, where's Michael Merrifield? I was delighted when he ran and was elected. So we served together in the House. We've served together on the Senate. Sitting on the back row, it's kind of like the back row of the bus. The Henri boys would always sit back there. Well, I enjoyed sitting with the Henri boy back there this last 4 years. It has been great fun to not only look at the policy and the political things that we have in common, but to learn more and more about his humanity, his love for the environment, his love for getting out. And can I get a bike ride in? Can I get a bike ride in? Do you think we're coming back on the floor? What time will it be? Oh, gosh, it's raining. Okay, the sun is shining. I'll be on a bike ride. And that joy that comes through for him, I know that he will continue to make an impact no matter where he is and what he has done. His background as a teacher in a rural area as well as in Manitou Springs as he finished up in Colorado Springs has been instrumental in changing the lives of so many. So he leads his life with a song in his heart, his feet on the pedals, and ready to ride into happiness and joy. And Michael, I wish you nothing more than
Me too.
you too. I love you, Michael Merrifield. Thanks for letting me serve with you.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have had the pleasure to serve with Senator Merrifield for 2 years now. So when I was elected to serve in the Senate was the first time I had a chance to really witness and observe him as a lawmaker. And what I can tell you about him is he has this grit as it relates to making sure that we're doing all the best we can to make sure that we are teaching and preparing our kids for their future and for tomorrow. That's been something that you have never, ever wavered on. You can always kind of tell a person or judge a person by what they talk about. And what I hear Senator Merrifield talk about the most is his love for the arts as it relates to teaching kids, his love for music as it relates to teaching kids, and his determination to do all that we can to make sure that we're funding our schools adequately. Throughout the 2 years I've seen you down here, you have just been a strong, strong advocate for kids. And for that, I am so forever grateful. I am also aware of your love for the outdoors. I had no idea that you were a biker until you showed me a picture of yourself in your biker shorts and your bike, and then you showed me the path that you were going to bike up. I think it was like, I don't know, 20 miles, or I don't. It was like something I know that I couldn't do. I would have to train to do what you do on a regular basis to get to the point of what you're able to accomplish. So I just want to say you're going to be missed for your passion for kids, and I want to thank you for all you've done for kids. Thank you.
Senator Kagan.
Well, thank you, Mr. President and members, for giving me this opportunity to express my admiration and love for Mike Merrifield. Such a great man. The kind of man who, when he knows his cause is right and his words or actions are going to benefit others, particularly children, who he has devoted his life to improving through the benefit of his experience and his knowledge, and through the miracle of education. And education, he knows, is only as good as those providing it. All the kids are good enough to be educated, but not all the teachers are able to and given the tools to convey that education and bring out in kids all that they can be. But Mike knows it, and he knows it deep in his heart, and he's devoted his life to it. And Mike is one of those guys who will do the right thing and say the right thing and take the right actions, no matter how uncomfortable it becomes for him personally, because he completely subsumes that to the greater objective, which is an utterly selfless objective. And that is the mark of a really good man, a really decent man. And I'm proud to know you, Mike. I'm proud to have been able to work with you all these years, both in the House and the Senate. And thank you for giving me that opportunity, sir. It's been an honor to know you.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Merrifield, I just wanted to say real quickly, enjoyed working with you this past year on important financial issues. I completely respect where you come from and a lot of the positions you take, and I've just enjoyed getting to know you, and Scott for that matter too, over the last 3 years. So I just wanted to wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you, Jack. Senator Martinez Huminick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I have to tell a little bit of a story here. When I first came to the Senate, I was kind of afraid of Senator Merrifield because he never smiled. And he always looked so serious. And he would just look at you, and I knew he was thinking. But what I found was beneath that gruff exterior is a person who's very, very passionate about music. And that's something that I shared in my home, too. My mom is in music, and so consequently, many of us were musical. We're going to miss your voice in the Senate choir. So who knows who's going to take your place, and maybe no one will. I don't know, but have enjoyed having the Senate choir and having you as a part of it. We served on the Early Childhood School Readiness Legislative Oversight Committee. And again, I was chairing in 2016, and I had split everybody up into different groups because we have a variety of advocates and outside people who come in that are very actively engaged. And Senator Merrifield came up to me and said, I don't want to be in this group. I want to be in the education group, because there were different topics. And I suggested to him that there was a method to why I had done what I had done, and he ended up being the spokesperson and really giving a lot to the group that he was a part of, and they wanted him to speak on their behalf, and he actually had fun with it. So I just want to say thank you. We've actually worked on some bills together, and my goal then, after I found out that you were nice, was to get a smile, because you do have a good smile. And we have the bicycling in common. My husband bikes a lot, and I know that's one of your passions too. So this morning, as I was thinking about the tribute today, I was thinking, you know, we're going to see you tootling down the road, over hill, over dale, into the sunset at some point in time. But be safe. Now that we've got these new laws where you don't have to stop, be safe, because you've got to watch out for the cars that are out there. But thank you so much for your service, and I learned a great deal from everyone here, but I've learned a great deal from you too as an educator to educator, when we've had the opportunity to talk to things. So I really appreciate your service, not only to your district, but to the state of Colorado, and the time that you and your family have allowed you to be here. So thank you so much.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've had to rewrite a couple of things I was going to say, because first of all, I'm just learned that our minority leader was a piano player and music major. I don't think any of us knew that, so that was interesting. And then I learned that Senator Merrifield used to push his personal religious beliefs on unsuspecting elementary children. But beyond that, it's been great getting to know Mike, and I think most people would assume that I'd talk about our connection, both being teachers, and also talk about our connection both being avid bike riders. And I certainly will remember him for all that. But there are a couple of other things I'm going to remember him. And when you reach a certain age, and did you know that he is not just a grandfather, but he is a great grandfather? Not just that he's great at being a grandfather, but he is actually a great grandfather. I was kind of stunned to know that. But I learned about, I think the word used was grit, and I learned about grit and fighting down here at the legislature from Mike. And in particular, I don't remember exactly what happened and what words were said, but I do remember a time in the House Education Committee where the chair of the committee, Mike Merrifield, was banging his gavel, and then Representative Cory Gardner was yelling across the committee room, and then there were papers being thrown, and Representative Cory Gardner storming out. I don't know exactly what happened, but I'm sure there's a tape of it, and it was a fond memory. The other thing I remember where I learned about fighting and grit from this man was his fight against cancer. As a representative, And of course, being a singer, the cancer went after his throat. And just the amount of knowing that he was running back and forth between Colorado Springs, getting treatment, and still serving out that his term in that session here really proved to, a lot of people assumed that he would just step down from his seat and take care of himself, but no, he fought through everything. And just amazing grit in this man. So I will really miss him. Thank you, Representative and Senator Merrifield, for those lessons.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I too wish to share some kind words and appreciation, gratitude to Senator Merrifield. I was first elected to the State House in 2006, began serving the people in 2007, and got to know Mike Merrifield in the House, of course, and certainly in the Senate. And some of the things that stand out for me that are a testament to who he is and what he is passionate about. Certainly education and students and teachers, we've heard that expressed already, and as a teacher himself, so I commend you for your being a champion and being very passionate about those kinds of issues, which really matter to all of us, and in particular, certainly the importance of the arts and access to the arts, and encouraging STEAM, for example, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. The second thing that stands out in the years that we've worked together is that your proclivity, your tendency to be very supportive of groups of people that are oftentimes marginalized. And so I think we have some success over the years working on policy that helps to address the issues that many folks face that are marginalized, such as an example, renters' rights, and trying to improve the conditions of apartments and updating some of the laws regarding that. So I thank you for those good works. And of course, regarding bicycling, you've done a number of policy changes that have improved safety for bicyclists and for drivers. And on the matter of bike shorts, the ones that are tight, I don't know, it's a really tough competition between Senator Merrifield and the good senator from Jefferson County, who also has a tendency to wear colorful and tight bike shorts. But and then finally, it's been one of the things I've really appreciated, although I've never had the courage, and that is when we honor people for their birthdays, and we have the choir come up here, and certainly Michael is one of the lead persons there, so I'm going to miss that. But I do have a suggestion in terms of a future career, if you'll accept this in a respectful way, and that is that perhaps you could start a company that focuses on singing telegrams. Thank you.
Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. It gives me joy to say a few words about my colleague from Colorado Springs. You've heard the word blue dog and yellow dog Democrat. I call him a true dog Democrat who's always been true to the Democratic spirit, and maybe that's why he has such a hard time sometimes with even his own caucus and certainly across the aisle, because he has been a true dog Democrat for as long as I've known him. And he has never backed down from supporting labor and the working people, the teachers. He has never backed down from a fight if he needed to take up that fight on the behalf of the working folks. I think that the thing that I will always remember about him is that his cancer has not become all of who he is. It's just a part of him. His cancer is, and his cancer survival means that he's someone who has an extra special characteristic, one that is a part of his strength and his continued love of sports, because he sees outdoor activity and sports and riding as a way to continue to keep his body healthy. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us. It's been a good lesson for me. I will always remember the hard fight that you've helped us with, good Senator. I could always count on you when I was minority leader to be the one who spoke up, to be the one who did not sit down when we needed to stand up. And you are truly, truly a man of your word and an inspiration to all of us who are part of the party, and also to those of us who are the other party. I think you're truly an inspiration to all of us. I'll miss our conversations, and I'll miss you being in the offices next door to mine, and hopefully we'll find each other on some wild trail in the future. Thanks. Love you guys.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I wanted to come down and speak about the other senator from across the aisle from El Paso County. Senator Merrifield and I have not quite as much history as the senator from Jefferson County and Senator Merrifield have, but I worked on the campaign of Senator Merrifield's opponent when he first ran for the House. I don't know if he remembers that or not. Very well. And it was a very close race. And one never knows what one says in this business or moments that capture someone else's attention, but I remember well that there was a candidate for him in El Paso County, and this was for House District 18, which is apportioned in such a way that it was quite competitive, and I think that race only turned on about 125 or so. 212 ultimately. And so at a forum like that in El Paso County, you have questions about education reform and what are your thoughts on this? And I watched a lot of Democrat candidates that evening say, well, you know, I believe in this and I believe in that and so forth. And then when Senator Merrifield answered the question, then Mr. Merrifield, I remember him saying something along the lines, this is not perfect, but something along the lines of, well, I have been a career teacher and CEA member for all of my adult life. I think you know where I stand on that. And then very unabashedly telling everyone there what his views were on education, which were completely 180 degrees from mine. But I remember thinking in that moment, well, you know, and this is what I thought to myself, you know, Michael, there's one thing that can never be said about you, and that is that you, in any way, try to dodge saying exactly what you believe to any audience, anywhere, any place, anytime. And that has always and forever been my experience with you, that you have always spoken your beliefs and advocated for education in the way that you believe is right and correct. And I admire that and respect that and always have from that moment to this one. And then when we served together in the House and I would go to House Education and you chaired the Education Committee. You killed my bills fairly promptly and courteously. But what I remember most was your battle with cancer and how much I admire and respect your courage, your energy through what was a very challenging time, and it was something through which I came to know you in a way for your courage. And I wanted to say that this morning and tell you how much I have enjoyed serving with you, jousting as we have. And while I have great respect for your presumptive replacement, I have to say I will not enjoy crossing sabers with him nearly as much as I have with you. We will miss you, Senator, and thank you for your service to the people of Colorado and for advocating for the children of Colorado, for teachers in Colorado, education, and the other issues that have been important to you. Thank you.
So nice. Thank you so much.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike Merrifield is an education crusader. That distills to me what he is. He's always fighting for schools, for kids, for a better future, and that's what teachers do. And then I learned his choice of song for these children, a Christian song, and I knew he was a crusader at that point. But I met Mike through an email. I heard he had throat cancer. It was before I even thought about running and coming back here. And I sent him an email saying, keep your hope and fight hard to get better. And because that's the kind of cancer, one of the kind of cancers I had. And, you know, I knew how busy people are down here, but I got a reply, a real reply back from him thanking me for doing that. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, I don't know, something hit me when I read the newspaper article. Speaking of cancer survivors, there's Raleigh Heath. Hey, Raleigh. See, we can name names. It's so cool. So I look forward to working with Mike. I'd heard of his reputation, and he did not disappoint. He is on a mission for schools, for children, for a better future, and you can tell he just deeply believes that. And he becomes very firm about that, I guess is the way to say it. He is very adamant, and he will not back down, and he knows what's right. And I think it's a very honorable job he's had helping children with music express their feelings, get better at something that helps them with critical thinking and enjoy life. And he improved the lives of a lot of kids. And one of our members, it sounds like, is in it is one of them. But he also did that as a legislator. He just carried on. And he is definitely an education crusader, and I'm proud to have served with you, Mike. You lived up to your reputation, and I think a lot of kids are better off for it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you bet.
Miss you, buddy.
Me too.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do I need to ask for a moment of personal privilege?
No, you do not.
Okay, good. So I wasn't gonna. I have to say, I had this dream last night that nobody spoke. Literally. So I'm so appreciative and touched by all the expressions of all of you. I did not intend to tear up and choke up, but I already have a number of times. Hopefully, I'll be very brief so that there's not as much chance. This has been a great honor. I'm flabbergasted at how fast the time has flown and how slow it has gone. But I've looked forward to this day for quite some time, and I've kind of dreaded this day for some time. So I want to thank those of you who've helped me along the way. those of you who've been friends over the years, when I went through my cancer treatments, by the way, I missed one day of that legislative session. I had a radiation treatment every day and a chemo once a week, but I would go, and when I get tired, and Marilyn would let me lie down in her office, and I'd catch my breath and come back and vote. Many of you were there and helped me through that time. I really, really appreciate it. I want to, before I forget about it, I want to thank my aides and my interns. Taylor's here, and Allie's here, and Megan's here. Really, really appreciate that. Love having your support over the last couple of years. One of the most outstanding things about having been in the Senate was my opportunity to work with my son as my aide. And I always knew he was smart, but I never knew he was smarter than I. And it's really kind of frustrating that he's really that much smarter than I am, but it's been great getting to know Scott and to work with him. To people who are heart friends, Nancy, Andy, Matt, thank you for letting me vent, sometimes more than you probably appreciated. I appreciate that. Lucia, you helped me this year. You and I know how much you helped me through some tough times this year. I appreciate it. To those of you on both sides of the aisle who've been there, even when we disagreed and didn't slap me down or weren't as rude to me as I probably was to you, I appreciate it, that you were forgiving. But as you might have heard, the fact, because I'm so shy and retiring, I'm not going to continue to talk, but as a musician, I think I've always felt that messages are best presented through music, so I'm going to take my moment of personal privilege and do a little bit of music for you. Okay. Hang on here. And now the end is near, and so I face the final gavel. My friends, I'll say it clear. I've got my bike. I'm gonna travel. I've served a term that's full. I fought for schools, for arts and teacher pay. But more, much more than that, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I said what I had to say, and now I'll flee and take my pension. I've lost some fights, of course. It sucks to be in the minority. What if the cause is lost? I did it my way. Yes, there were times, more than a few, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, the Kill Committee threw my bills out. And once again, no governor's pen, but I did it my way.
Well, with that walk-off home run, it's...
Motion for sine die?
We have one more item to present to Senator Merrifield, and I'll go first and allow the minority leader to make the presentation. But I did want to discuss the disclosure here. This is an outgoing member award for Senator Michael Merrifield, Representative 2003 to 2010, and Senator 2015 to 2018. On the bottom, it does disclose that nothing herein justifies the practice of leaving the Senate early, but that doesn't mean you can't. Senator, congratulations and thank you for the work for the people of Colorado. Can we get the second one, please? And Senator, do you have guests you'd like to have come join you? None that are going to come up. Oh, my, okay.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we want to start with congratulating our good colleague, Senator Kerr, and I'll start with reading this. The Colorado State Senate convened in the second regular session of the 71st General Assembly hereby extends the heartiest congratulations and commendations to Senator Andy Kerr. Senator Kerr was elected to serve in the 65th, 66th, 67th, 68th, 69th, 70th, and 71st General Assembly, where he represented his fellow citizens with honor and dignity. During his tenure with the Senate, he served with distinction as chair of the Education Committee, vice chair of the Finance Committee, and as a member of the Appropriations, Business, Labor, and Technology Legislative Council and Statutory Revisions.
Senator Kerr was also a member of the School Safety and Youth Crisis Committee. The citizens of Colorado and the members of the Senate express gratitude for his exemplary service to our great state and wish him well in his future endeavors. Given this 7th day of May 2018, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, signed Kevin J. Grantham, President of the Senate. I'll start out. Senator Kerr, when he was Representative Kerr and I was in the House, we were not allies, but we've learned to trust each other. And one conversation that I want to recall, because it really speaks to the character of Andy Kerr. In my last year in the House, I served on the Education Committee as a minority member of that committee. And one day out in the parking circle, I wanted to have a conversation with the chair of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Andy Kerr, a teacher, a union member, a Democrat, a liberal. And for me, that's contrary to everything that I am. But I happened upon Andy out in the parking lot, and I had a conversation with him. As chair of the Senate Education Committee, do you see a way that we can reach across party aisle, reach across from one chamber to the other, and talk about the frequency of assessments when it comes to park testing? And we had a conversation outside, and that year it didn't happen. In 2014, it didn't happen. But the bill I've worked hardest on when I came to the legislature, I've worked harder, longer, ran back and forth between the two chambers, happened in 2015, when I got to be a colleague of Senator Kerr here in the Senate. And at the very end of that session, as we entered those last few days of the session, a bill passed on the very last day, here the day before, and then it went over to the House to actually reduce the frequency of assessments and start to push back on park. That was a fascinating achievement because we had the conversation the year before out in the parking lot. Do you think there's a way that we could get this done? And we didn't have a lot of agreement there. But that last big bill of the 2015 session, the two sponsors were Senator Andy Kerr and myself. And I think that that allowed us an opportunity to trust each other, to test each other. And it allowed us to find agreement and really develop a friendship since then. And for the people outside this Capitol who criticize the Colorado legislature, I think with a perspective more based out of Washington, D.C., that we don't work together, that we can't get things done, that's wrong. Last year, 62% of the bills that were introduced passed both chambers in a split legislature and went to the governor for a signature. And I'm proud that in my 4 years in the Senate here, that education legislation and other things, including not coming to a full stop at a stop sign when you're on a bicycle, I voted for it. He finally got that done. Andy Kerr doesn't give up. Andy Kerr isn't afraid to talk to people on the other side of the aisle or work between the two chambers. And those are qualities that we need more of in members. And I'm grateful that Andy Kerr has taught me. He's a teacher. And I've learned from him in my 4 years in the Senate and the 4 years of the House. Senator, I'll miss you, and the people of your district will miss you. You're another reason why term limits aren't always a good thing. But Mr. Kerr, I wish you the best in your career. And for all those students out there, we've heard from one student who now is a senator and a teacher who was one of her teachers. What a rare coincidence. But all of us have reason to turn back in our history and let those teachers who have impressed us, who've changed our lives, know that one of their students sits in this chamber. Every one of those teachers has a state senator in his or her resume. And I'm just grateful for Senator Kerr crossing that gap and coming here and the opportunity that I have to serve with him. And I can't wait to learn more about the people who you've taught in your career as a teacher and what great things they'll achieve. Thank you, Senator Kerr.
Leader Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, my comment's going to be brief in regards to Senator Kerr because even though I've been here 6 years, we've never served on committees together. It's always been more of a mentoring capacity, and I've felt the benefit of knowing him as a mentor to me. But I'll have to say that I really came to know and respect Senator Kerr in regards to when I was first elected 4 years ago and coming over to the Senate from the House. I had heard about him, and most of what I had heard took place outside of this building into how competitive he was, how he fought with tenacity for his election, and what that meant in being able to materialize, but more importantly, set a high standard. I remember looking at other things that he was doing that were creative, and what that meant when he came back to being in the Senate, and how he translated that into an office. I know that Doug has been fortunate to work with Senator Kerr for many years, but it also, in a way that he didn't yet understand at that time, helped serve for me how important constituent services was, how important ensuring that your Senate office was equally as important as the work that you talk about you'll do on the outside, making sure you could actually make sure that work actually happened inside this building. And as we know, many times you share a lot of that responsibility yourself, but you have to have an office that can help you achieve that. And I've noticed that Senator Kerr has always been able to accomplish that. I look forward to seeing what you'll go on to do. Obviously, it'll be great things still. This will not be the pinnacle of that, but it's been an honor to serve with you, my friend.
Senator Donovan. Colleagues, there is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the Senator Kerr member tribute amendment by Senator Donovan?
Senator Kerr member tribute amendment by Senator Donovan. Amend Senator Kerr member tribute, page 1, before line 1, insert Section 9 of Colorado Revised Statutes 20.
You want him to read it?
No, go ahead. Let's get to the through line 6.
Section 9 of Colorado Revised Statute 2254-103, amend the introductory portion and 15 as follows. 2254-103, definitions as used in this strike article on strike Article 54, unless the context otherwise requires. 15, supplemental kindergarten enrollment means the number calculated.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I ask for your support on this amendment today. As we have heard throughout the session and years, full-day kindergarten has been an issue that my friend has championed and fought for. And so I could think of no better way, actually, than to do a strike below on your tribute and amend it instead with full-day kindergarten support. But considering we're in a moment of personal privilege and you can't run amendments on tributes, I suppose that I will move along.
Are you withdrawing the amendment?
I'll withdraw the amendment.
Very well. The amendment is withdrawn.
But, Mr. President, and my dear friend Andy, I think what will be the legacy that you leave behind is a true sense that leadership doesn't always need a title. And you've been a spectacular champion, day after day, opportunity after opportunity for the things that you think need a voice and a champion in this building. And if it was finding a broad bill title that you could run the amendment once more on, if it was during our lunches, you know, reminding us once again of a gap that you see that needs to be filled, this building is incredibly noisy, and it has a lot of people pushing and pulling on the issue of the moment and the issue that may have just arisen. But we know that the big problems get solved by the people that refuse to be quiet on them. And education you have refused to be quiet on. And I expect that will not end just because you leave this building, and I certainly hope. I asked a mutual friend of ours, what should I say about Andy today? And he said, immediate reply, sticks to his word and doesn't let politics impact how he treats people. And I think there's not too much of a higher honor that you can say of someone in this building, and even particular this year. It's been so fun getting to know you, and our paths would never have crossed. I literally never would have met you if it wasn't for this chamber. And so I feel there are many privileges and honors that this job brings us, and one of them is having new lifelong friends. And so thank you for everything you've done for education, not only for how much I appreciate you reminding us of the things that we still have to fight for, but on behalf of all the children of Colorado, you have made their lives better by being a teacher and by being a senator. Thank you, sir.
Senator Court.
I'll just start out crying and then I'll get it over with. Many of you know that my predecessor in the House, and of course I have a cold too, so I have no voice. Many of you know that my predecessor in the House was Speaker Andrew Romanoff, and that I had done political campaigns and political consulting for many years before I came to this to the Capitol. In '06, when then Representative Kerr came in as a vacancy committee appointment, I said to Andrew Romanoff, what can I do to help us with the next campaign cycle? And he said, go out to Lakewood and be sure Andy Kerr comes back. He's so green. He hasn't a clue what he's doing, and he needs a strong campaign manager. Andrew Romanoff knows me pretty well. So when he said he needs a strong campaign manager, he knew what he was talking about. So I contacted Representative Kerr and offered to be his campaign manager and said, can we meet and discuss this? And he said, yes, I'd be happy to meet with you. Look forward to it. And I said, but not near the Capitol. It'll, too many red flags. So we went to Helen Gone Lakewood, which for Denver City Girl was the other side of the moon, and met. And I said, I know what you look like from your website picture, but you don't know what I look like. So I'll just tell you that I have gray hair, and I am, how old was I then? I don't know, close to 60, and it shows. And when we met, he recognized me in all of Starbucks. I can't imagine why. And came up to me and said hello and blah, blah, and we talked and talked. And then he said, okay, I'm pretty sure, but there's two people you're going to have to meet before I can agree to hire you. And those two people are my wife and my treasurer, who are sitting right here with Senator Kerr right now. And I thought, okay, two more strong women that probably will say, oh, she's too much, but we'll see. Anyway, when you work with Andy Kerr, you work with his entire family, which includes Pam Feely. And I got through those interviews and started working for Andy. I had done lots of campaigns, lots of candidates for many years. I had never worked with a candidate I clicked so well with. And when the campaign was over and he won to come down here on his own, by his own right, worked really hard, he said, would you come be my aide? And I said, okay, how much do aides make? And he told me. And I said, well, if you can find another representative, I can come down and earn twice next to nothing by working for both of you and then being there relatively full time. That other representative for whom I worked in the 2007 session was Dan Gibbs, who then came to this chamber and is now a county commissioner in Summit County. So if you want to blame somebody for Andy Kerr and Dan Gibbs, you can look at me, but you can also turn it the other way around and look at them and blame them for me being here eventually, because when they were here, I would go into the chamber frequently and listen to the debate and think, I think I know pretty much a lot of what they're talking about because I've been involved for so many years. And Andrew Romanoff was term limited, so I thought maybe I should go for it because it fit. Andy was right there with me and he said, you go girl, you do this. So from being campaign manager to being aide to being colleague, I have admired this man, excuse me, and loved him dearly, even though we do have our disagreements. For 12 years, he is a stellar example of a true public servant, from teacher to representative to senator. He has given his all to this state and its people. I'm going to miss him so much because he sits there and tells me, don't vote this way, do vote that way. Like, I might know what I'm doing by now, Andy. No, I'm going to tell you. But I will miss him terribly, and I love you so much.
Senator Todd, were you?
You're not getting a new bike.
Well, I just thought, you know, Linus had a security blanket. Senator Kerr has his bike. And so I just felt like it needed to have a prominence as we continued to talk about this great man. I, too, had the privilege of working with Andy for the last 12 years. And I remember when Betty Boyd was leaving the House and was going to come to the Senate. And I went to Andrew Romanoff and I said, oh, please, we need to find a really strong educator. We need to find someone who has really had practical experience in the classroom, who is really passionate about education. And I don't know Jefferson County. I don't know. And he came to me and he said, oh my gosh, we have found the perfect candidate. And I said, well, he's kind of young. He was young at that time, I think. And so I met Andy, and we just clicked. We both have social studies teaching background. We are passionate about our families, about teaching, about education, and building up a stronger education system for the whole state of Colorado. So we got to serve together in the House on education. The thing that I'm so impressed with in so many things, but Andy was always willing to serve on any committee at any time, even though his passion has been education. He was willing to step back, serve on judiciary, serve on, I don't think he ever served on state affairs, but maybe temporarily. But being willing to step in wherever the need was. And not just kind of fill the hole and be there, but really be an integral part and be very instrumental in solving problems. And I think that is what that character and that breadth and depth of who he is has made him such a strong policymaker, servant to his community, to our state, and the work ethic of knowing and understanding he had to be in more than one place at a time, whether it was at a swim meet or whether it was at a downhill snowboard race, wherever it was, he and Tammy had to try to figure out who's picking up the kids, how are we going to do this, and how are we going to manage and balance. And you are a class act. Your marriage is strong, your family is strong, and because of that, it gives you the permission and the opportunity to serve everyone in your community and in our state. And as we came to the Senate together and have served now, and I feel like in some ways, gosh darn, term limits for so many people, but you didn't get the full package. And I know that that's a regret that we all have, that I wish you were going to be here for my final 2 years. I will miss you tremendously. Your dedication, Andy, is so unquestionable. Your willingness to put others before yourself all the time has been a characteristic that I have admired. Your willingness to listen and to work to the very nth degree to run that last amendment, to run that last bill, to say, this is so important. Please hear that message. It's not about me, but it is about the children, and it is about the future of our state. It has been such a high honor to serve with you, and such just a remarkable, fun time to watch you and your family when they come to the Capitol, even from the time, I think, was it Kennedy that was, I can't remember how old they are now, but watching them grow up and have the respect and the regard you have modeled as a dad, you have modeled as a husband, you have modeled as a policymaker, and you are to be greatly admired. I will miss you deeply. That's why it's out here.
Senator Zinzinger.
Senator Kerr and I are very similar. We have kids that are the same age. We're both social studies teachers. We both have a real deep interest in education and education policy. We're both currently practicing teachers. And in 2014, when I came here on a vacancy, I was paired up with Senator Kerr, and we shared an office together. It's where I am now, but we didn't have the partition there, so the whole office was shared between the two of us. And I don't know who thought to put us together, but I have to say it was the best thing that happened to me, because there was no greater mentor for me, and still is no greater mentor for me than Senator Kerr. We both wanted to go a particular direction, and we knew what we wanted to get at the end, but I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know which directions to take or how to craft it. I didn't know the politics of it. But Andy did. Late night text messages, emails, encouraging phone calls, standing by my side through thick and thin, hearing me, listening to me, helping me get there. And there is no greater mentor in this building than you for me. and I'm very grateful for that. I even co-opted his staff, trying to become like Andy Kerr. But I will never become like Andy Kerr for two reasons. One, I don't bicycle. I have no plans to pick it up. But then two, because he's truly such a gentleman and a scholar, and he has so much knowledge and experience that I could never achieve. And I'm very grateful that I had you by my side here in that very tumultuous year. And I'm very grateful to you because I wouldn't be back here if it weren't for you as well. So thank you. Good luck to you. I really appreciate getting to know you, and we're going to miss you terribly.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I first arrived in the Colorado legislature, it was the House of Representatives, and it was the middle of a session, and I was very, very fortunate to share an office and to be able to learn from and observe and appreciate the presence and company and wisdom of Andy Kerr. What a blessing that was for me. I got to see how legislative goals can be achieved without a jot of rancor, without the tiniest part of hostility or anger being expressed to those who will not do what you'd like them to do, how you can achieve legislative goals for the people you care about and for the state you love without being hostile in any way, but by simple force of logic, of reason, of a sense of justice, and dogged pursuit of the goal, but not in a hectoring manner. I learned from Andy just by watching him how important it is to make yourself available to your constituents, to make sure that they know that you truly are representing them and truly are hearing them and truly are willing to listen to them. I remember during one session when we shared an office, whenever there was 3 or 4 minute break in proceedings, Andy would come into his office, sit down, his aide would hand him a list of constituents whose birthday occurred that day, and Andy would proceed to call them each, wish them a happy birthday, and invite them to get in touch with him if ever they had any concerns that they would like to bring before the legislature. And he would do it when there was 10 minutes to spare before a committee hearing, or when there was 20 minutes after adjournment before he had to have a lunch with someone. And these were times when most of us just think, oh, a moment to relax. But no, Andy would reach out to people he hadn't met, he didn't know, just to wish them a happy birthday and to make sure that they knew how to get in touch with him. And he was tireless about it. And that's something that always stuck with me. Leadership is a hard thing to define. But when you watch Andy working with all of us, you see leadership on display every day. Andy, regardless of his title within any group, will not take leadership, but will be granted the courtesy and the imperative of following him closely, because he has that natural ability to divine what is the best way forward, how can we accommodate the interests that we care about and advance the goals that we all cherish, while not damaging that effort in any way by pushing forcefully when force is not the thing to be done, by not giving in to the temptation to be frustrated, just by a solid, hard work, and sound argument. And it's often Andy who provides that path forward for the rest of us. That, to me, is natural leadership. And as I've observed it along the way, I've never been able to emulate it, and never will be, because he is a true great talent in that regard, with a true great heart to motivate that tremendous talent. And more than that, from a legislator, and a friend, one cannot ask. Decency, competence, determination, hard work, and sir, I have for you the greatest respect. Thank you.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can remember when Andy first came into the House and Speaker Romanoff told me, hey, we've got somebody you're going to like. And he was exactly right. Having Andy on the Education Committee was an incredible plus for me. Andy's passion matched and still matches mine, his love of teaching, his love of children, his love of the system matches mine. We have so much in common. Our love of the outdoors, skiing, snowboarding, biking, the hair. It's really... Actually, I should say the one thing I don't like Andy about is his hair. It really bugs me. He has such a nice head of hair. But, and then when I came to the Senate, Andy was already here, and we had our Senate retreat, the very first one. We hadn't yet been sworn in, and we had a retreat up in Keystone, or I think it was Keystone, and we were asked if we wanted to room with anybody. And right away I said, yeah, put me with Andy Kerr. He's my good buddy. He's my good friend. And I was really thrilled that we'd have that opportunity to be together. And Tammy, you may know what happened next. I'm not sure, but Andy stayed out a little later than I that night party, and I went to bed. And I woke up maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning to this horrendous noise. It was shaking the rafters. This is the most powerful snorer I have ever known. He's a superlative in everything that he does, including snoring. But Andy, I really count you as a heart friend. I'm hoping that now when we're both out of the Senate, we can actually do some of these things together that we love. We can actually go I don't think we've ever ridden bikes together, that we can do that. And we can go skiing / boarding together and enjoy our friendship in ways we have not had the opportunity to. So I'm not going to miss you, but it's because I'm going to make sure we stay connected. Andy, thank you. Love you, buddy.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to stand here today to talk about my dear friend. I first met him when he was a representative, so he's now a senator. But Andy, I just want you to know how much you've meant to me over my career. I can remember when I first was seeking election, you gave me good advice in reference to a pathway to victory to win. I will never forget how you gave me confidence to keep going. And that was so very important, because when you're running a campaign, it's a lot of hard work. It's a hustle for sure. And you encouraged me to never give up, to keep going, that you felt like I had what it was needed to win the race and to lend my voice for my community. So thank you so very much. If you all don't know, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. And so this is so very becoming that we are going to be celebrating the contributions and the achievement of Senator Andy Kerr, because he's been such a champion for educators. But you know, all the work that we do down here, we cannot do it by ourselves. It takes the love and support of a spouse or a partner or a family or a community or constituents that helps us do this work. So I'm so glad to see Tammy here today, because we don't do this alone. We really cannot do this kind of work alone. It does take unconditional love for the people who love us to allow us to pursue the work that we're doing. So thank you for being here today. Andy is a good man, and I can tell you how I know this. I know this based on the partners that he engages with. If you know the kind of partners that he's involved with, many of them are women's groups. So it could be NARAL, it could be Planned Parenthood, it could be supporting family leave, it could be anything, and there will be a lot of women there, but you would look around, and there you would find Senator Andy Kerr supporting the rights of women. And you don't find too many men that are willing to publicly stand with women. And he has done so over and over and over again. So when I think about 9 to 5 and the Women's Foundation and the Children's Campaign and CEA and just all the different partners that he aligns himself with, he is truly a champion of the people. And his work within his community, his constituents, they know who he is. And they see him as a champion to make things right when they are wrong. So he has been proven, he has been tested, and he has shown that he's up for the battle ahead. So congratulations. I'm so glad to see your bike here, because that deserves to be right here in front of us all. Thank you so very much for your service over the years, Andy.
Senator Corum.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I came to the General Assembly 8 years ago, I met Andy Kerr. And in the interest of saving time, I instantly disliked him. But, you know, he's kind of like mold. He has grown on me. Andy and I have had disagreements, but it has never been disagreeable. And I thank you. I thank you for your passion that you bring to this place. I consider you a friend. I hope you will come to Southwest Colorado. I want to remind you to get to Gunnison, you do not use I-70. Just remember that. And I will miss you. And for that, you can thank that 3-foot rule. Cars and bicycles. I will miss you, my friend. Take care.
Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think when we talk about colleagues and say nice things about them, we often refer, you know, so-and-so, you can blame so-and-so for why I'm here. You can, you know, depending on who you are, you can give credit to so-and-so for why I'm here. I wasn't Andy's aide, or I didn't work on his campaigns or anything like that. I don't have that type of a story. But in a way, Andy is one of the few people that I can give credit to, and for some of you, you can blame for why I decided to run for office. In 2013 was, I think, the first time that I met with Senator Kerr, and I was obviously not a legislator. I was working on a bill that I was advocating for to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote. So when they get their driver's license, they can just sort of get it done in one step and not have to come back and register to vote once they're 18. And Andy agreed to carry the bill. And it wasn't, you know, one of his top priority bills. I think it was a House bill, and he agreed to be the Senate sponsor. And I remember coming down to the Capitol and meeting with him, and I was a little nervous and, you know, barely probably had a suit that fit me to wear to come into the Capitol. And I show up to Andy's office, and he's a little flustered. He's got like stacks of paper everywhere, and like sort of remembered that he was carrying this bill. And I remember we said that there were so many people in his office, so we had to take chairs out into the hallway to actually have our meeting, which made me wonder maybe he forgot that I was coming to meet with him because there was another meeting in his office. And I remember he was just, he kind of, it was kind of to the point, and took the information that I had and, said he was going to use the talking points and get the votes to get it through. And, I was a little skeptical when I walked away, being like, I don't know if this guy's gonna get this bill across the finish line. It doesn't seem like a big priority for him. And then a couple days later, of course, it sails right through. And he very much did it justice, spoke eloquently, lobbied his colleagues on it, got the bill passed overwhelmingly. And that was the point where I thought, if this guy can do it, I could probably run for office someday. He just made it seem easy. And then I get here several years later, and then I realize that's actually his biggest talent, is that he makes it seem easy. He gets up here and he speaks eloquently about issues he is incredibly passionate about, and he does it in a way that it seems like it's just kind of natural to him and easy. And I think in a lot of ways it is, and that's his true talent, is that he fights for what he believes in and day out. And it almost seems effortless, and he's incredibly effective when he does it. So thank you for giving me the faith that I, too, could do your job. But in all seriousness, Andy, thank you for being my mentor, for sitting next to me and answering all of my questions over the last 2 years about what to do when and how to make certain motions and whatnot, and being that person that I never feel embarrassed to ask an obvious question of. And thank you for all the work that you've done for children, for families, for the people of this great state. And I hope your days post-legislature are filled with long bike rides and really good hot chocolate every single day.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've known Senator Andy Kerr, I think, 12 years. We started together in the House. We had offices over in that other building, actually this building. And in all that we've heard this morning, there have clearly been some common themes. And I want to reinforce some of those common themes, but also articulate some things that perhaps haven't been mentioned. So I have a great deal of respect for this fine human being. Obviously there are issues that he is very passionate about, and he's very well informed. Certainly issues related to education and our kids learning better, the value of early childhood development, preschool, and of course it merits another shout out, his extraordinary advocacy and eloquence and prowess, legislative prowess, for trying to help us find a way to fund full-day kindergarten. So clearly he's very passionate about many issues, and he's had great success over the years in passing laws, policies that really, I believe, make a meaningful difference in people's lives, children's lives, families' lives. So I'm very honored to have been part of that journey, and so that's one thing I'd like to mention. I also want to talk a little bit about, real quick here, I know we're getting towards the noon hour here. It's been alluded to, I think the previous speaker spoke to the oratory of Senator Andy Kerr, and one thing I've seen over the years, how he's honed his skills and how he can deliver his message and how he has learned to pause. And I view Andy Kerr as perhaps this side of the Atlantic version of the gentleman from the other side of the Atlantic, who has certainly great oratory skills and can use big words and all sorts of things. But I'm mightily impressed at your verbal skills and how you have, how you can get up here and speak to issues and modulate how you do things. Sometimes when it goes really long, I think there's a purpose behind that, but it does go really long. Just a few more things, if I may. One, we've been neighbors too in terms of our offices, and I just really appreciate that. Even though I'm not perhaps the most partisan person, and I think Senator Kerr has encouraged me to do that, he has always watched out for me, or we've tried to watch out for each other. When he's going off on his bicycle or coming in, 63% of the time, perhaps, or higher or lower on his bicycle riding from his home, I just want to make sure that he's eating properly and is well nourished. And he's been really a great mentor to me in terms of teaching me, reminding me how to work a bill, not to forget the importance of vote counts, not to, the things that we need to do down here, to be successful and to try to bring together bipartisan support. So I'm really, really grateful for that. I think the last thing I'll mention, I do know that as neighbors and in terms of our offices, if you ever go to Senator Kerr's office, you'll see that there are things on the walls that are iron skillets. And over the years, I've tried to advise Senator Kerr, Andy, that his interns and his team, they often assemble around this round table that is right below these skillets, these iron skillets. And I have tried to encourage him to maybe move the table or perhaps remove the skillets to make sure that we are properly doing risk management here as far as those skillets coming off the wall. But that said, the last two things I'll mention is, I don't think it's been referred to, and that is Andy's sartorial splendor. Did you hear that, Senator Kagan? Sartorial splendor, thank you. And in particular, certainly when he's bicycling, he wears a particular outfit which is necessary, and many of you have seen that. But the other aspect of his sartorial splendor are his socks. He often wears, like today, very colorful socks, and I can't tell if they really match his suit or anything, but they're really colorful, and they stand out, and I like them a lot. And I imagine he'll do a shout out to the young man who has been here with him for quite a number of years. So I won't really steal his thunder on that, but I know Doug was here, but I have a feeling Andy will say good things about that gentleman. So with all that said, honored, grateful, humbled to someone who has looked out for me and made sure I get things right as best as I can. Thank you, Andy Kerr. Thank you very much.
Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I cannot let this morning go by or the day go by without bringing Jefferson County into this, because he has served Jefferson County very well. When he first came in, it's true, as he told you on Friday, that the speaker put him right next to me, and I did my very best, you all. I tried. He listened to a lot of the mentoring that I gave and how to, get these bills through, but I will tell you, he carried it much further than inside of this building. He is dearly loved in his community. He's been a great advocate for the constituents that live in his area, and they have completely supported him. And I have to tell you, when you first came in, do you remember there were 3 of us in that office? It was a little loud. Where did Senator Court go? I will also say that you and I both have gone through some pretty tough campaigns. You know, the ones where everyone said, oh, they got it, they got it. They don't need our help, that one? Yep, worked very, very, very hard And it's because of the work that he has done with his constituents that brought him back. And then the meetings. I have to tell you, he has a great following. I am just so grateful that you brought me in and allowed me to meet with you all when I first took Senate District 20, because that was a whole new area for me in Lakewood. And I have to tell you, they pack that room. There are always 75 to 100 people. So he's had a great following, worked very hard for his constituents. The district is greatly going to miss you. He's been just a great senator and someone I have grown to love and work and love serving with. Thank you.
Senator Martinez-Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Kerr, I am going to give you an A for effort for your gift of gab on the Senate floor. And I know that it can be, it was talked a little bit about before, but one of the things that I have noted in my time here, spending the time here in the chamber, is that when you were called upon, you were able to come and talk about whatever, for how long it was needed. And part of that, I think, comes from being an educator, because we oftentimes have to find different ways to talk to people to actually get our message across. And in some cases here, maybe there was a message and maybe not. But I also have to give you an A for effort for all the cows and everything else that you have run since I've been here. So I was glad to be able to work with you on a bill that unfortunately did not survive this year, that we'll hope that will be revived next year, because I know it was important to you, your family, and the fact that you have daughters and sons too that are going to be going off to college, and we want to make sure everybody's safe on college campuses. So I really appreciate your work on that, because even though you got to leave early on that last meeting, when it went almost 6.5 hours, really appreciate all the work that I've been able to do when we've had the opportunity to do it. And I just want to say thank you. And your students are going to get you back full time, and that's great, because I do think you have a very strong passion for wanting them to know about the state, about the country, about the world, and that you are very passionate about what you do. And you know, too, that I've talked to you about bicycling because of that shared passion that my husband has with that. Not me, but my husband. But anyway, thank you. I'll give you your A.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to rise and say a few words about my colleague from Jefferson County, Senator Kerr. Remember serving with him in the House for a few years. And one memory I'll always remember is I was headed to the restroom in the back, and I believe he was assistant majority leader then. And there was a certain representative from Adams County who didn't quite vote the right way. It's one of the few times I've seen Senator Kerr a little exercise, but I thought it was kind of cute being in the other party. But I will definitely miss a fellow Buff down here to advocate for our alma mater. He will very deeply be missed in that respect. And I've always admired his knowledge of the process and the rules and the many amendments, interesting, creative ways to fund education. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't agree. I've often thought of him as having similar experience with me, being about the same age with kids and so on, and still having a career. So I have admired you from a distance sometimes, and especially tried to take up bicycling as well. So you will be missed, Senator Kerr, and come back and say hi to us often.
Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Andy Kerr was my first full-day kindergarten teacher, and he will always play a special role in my life because of that. He just taught me so much back then.
Not that gray, is it?
Andy Kerr also, Senator Kerr also, I will always remember he was the one that helped the good senator from Fort Collins play Cards Against Humanity when the good senator from Senator introduced the entire caucus to Cards Against Humanity. Senator Kerr was very patient with the senator from Fort Collins, particularly when certain words came up that the senator did not understand the definition. And Senator Kerr he was just very gentle when he tried to explain to him what certain sentences and phrases meant. And so it was a good time. And somebody said a while ago, one of the other senators said a while ago, where is Andy? And it was late, he wasn't in the room yet, and I can tell you where he was. He was in my room, along with several other senators watching the movie of Jerry, what's his name? Jerry, the singer. Great Balls of Fire, the guy who sang that.
Lewis.
Yeah, he was in there singing that and drinking quite several bottles of some, well, anyway, that's where Andy was. Andy, you're a very special colleague to me. We've always had a lot of plans. All of them didn't work out. I think you would have made a phenomenal congressman. And I'm sorry that the path that you were taking, that journey, came to a stop, came to an abrupt stop. I hope that someday there will be another path for you, because just as you have represented your constituents and the people of Colorado so well here in this chamber, I know that you would do the same in Congress. So I have heard that you have interviewed with Smart Wool. They're looking for someone to chair their colorful socks division. And they called and asked for a reference. And I told them that I thought that you would make a good manager of one of those divisions, particularly the one that required someone who was a show-off and someone who enjoyed radiating through the sun radiating upon those socks as he rode the bicycles through the very lands of Colorado. And so I wish you well there. I want you to know I did give you a good recommendation. They told me that I told them that you would need a very good benefit plan, especially a good pension plan, and I told them that they said that they would be happy to make that, make it up to you. We have shared many personal moments, and with your family as well. I will never forget the time you and your family was with myself and my family up in Frisco, and you threw my partner down and she broke her arm, and so I'll always remember that, Andy. Very best of luck. No harm taken.
She broke her shoulder.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I know that this is the time to say a few words about the senator from Lakewood, but really what I've come to the well this morning for is to explain to the members of the chamber why national popular vote is a really bad idea. And the senator wanted this one last debate. It really is a bad idea. And if you need any help explaining it to your seventh graders, explaining the Electoral College, I'll be happy to come and do that. Senator Kerr, Andy, I hope I've irritated you just half as much as you've irritated me during our service together. But I know that no one will ever equal our record of earning iron skillets together from the Colorado Restaurant Association. Every one of these sets of personal remarks are very personal to each of us, and this one is out of respect and admiration and friendship, because we have served on House Judiciary together, and I remember talking about my irritation. You got mentioned on Bill O'Reilly before I did, although maybe I wouldn't have wanted to be mentioned that way, but that I remember my aide, my daughter coming and saying, "Dad, Representative Kerr got named on Bill O'Reilly," and I said, "Well, then you need to get to work because we're behind already." So we have really have carried some legislation together that was great for Colorado business and commerce, and that has been fun, and we have opposed each other on legislation, and that has equally been fun. And though I don't think we're going to be permitted to debate national popular vote at length, I know you will have something to say about that, and we'll always consider that something undone. Andy, we're going to miss you. We'll miss having you here. It's been a privilege to serve with you. I've enjoyed more than anything else your great sense of humor in the times of adversity and in the times that we have both been on the same side and been opposite each other. And thank you for your service to the people of Colorado. I'll miss you.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to say thank you to Senator Kerr for all of his support through these years. Whenever I had a bad bill idea, he was always happy to vote yes. And, and whenever I thought I was being too progressive, he assured me I wasn't. And I also want to thank him for letting me see where LaRaza lives in his district, and for the opportunity to help him with some of his outreach in Lakewood. I'm pleased with what a great job he's done representing that area, and I am looking forward to seeing what he chooses to do with the next chapter in his career. I know whatever it is, he will gladly support someone with bad ideas and annoy someone with good ones. Thanks.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a great time when I came back to the legislature and House. I ended up sitting by Andy Kerr over on the right, down low towards the front where nobody can see you. And I'm sitting there, and I'm used to how it used to be. And then Andy started doing these snarky comments from out of the blue across the room. My favorite one was when the majority leader made a mistake: go back to freshman orientation. And I thought, this is great. We can do this now. So, Mr. President, you can blame it on Andy Kerr, that too. But the thing about Andy is he is a natural leader, and people follow him just by what he does. And he's also an education crusader. The full-day kindergarten is a great example of that. But he also kind of pulls things along in the right direction. And his values are such, especially around education and that kind of thing, that it makes for very positive outcomes for kids. What the heck's this bike doing in front of us? Really? So, I think Senator Kerr, it's been an honor to serve with you. You're one of the best legislators I have served with. And thanks for your friendship and your jokes and making this all worthwhile.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all have those qualities that we admire in other people. I think the quality that I admire most in Andy is for him to have been down at the Capitol this long and not have anyone say a bad word about him. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong people. But truly, that that skill of being able to disagree without being disagreeable is more than just a skill. It's a piece of who you are and how you choose to live your life. And that's Andy. And I have done my best to emulate that, to always treat everyone fairly and with respect. And I really value that quality in him, and I'll miss him down here.
Senator Kerr for his rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment 38 and all the preceding amendments as well. And thank you all for all of the words. I know you're supposed to say thank you for all of the kind words. Thank you for all of the words that were spoken here this morning. I really appreciate it. And I do get to make a few rebuttals, I believe. I did not push her and she broke her arm. She broke her shoulder. So just to clarify that. And yes, I would love to have the national popular vote debate one last time at the well. And for those of you that don't know, we all know what bobbing is. When our own Colorado word for filibustering. But national popular vote was the bill where Bob became Bob and bobbing. That was the vote. And in fact, it's funny, I actually see Representative McGeehan out in the lobby right now. About hour 2 into that debate, and it wasn't really a debate, I moved the bill, said a couple of things, and then turned it over to the great debater, who was in the well then for a couple of hours, and it was into hour 2, and I had to go to the bathroom. I was getting hungry. I was in the back of the House chamber, and I was eating, I remember this very clearly, I was eating grapes in the back of the chamber. This was how I was debating my bill, because there was no giving up the microphone to Representative Gardner at that time. And Representative McGeehan comes up to me and says, "What are you doing back here? Get down there and debate your bill." And I'm like, I can't break in. I mean, he's been going an hour and a half. And so I remember that very, very clearly. But that was when Bob became Bob and started bobbing. So when those of you who spoke about me being long-winded, I had great teachers for some of these things. I'm definitely not going to try to name and thank everybody, because I will certainly forget people, and I believe we have at least one more tribute to go today. So I'd like certainly to, no, not to you, James. I definitely want to thank some folks. One thing that I want to say is that it is really, really tough serving in the legislature, especially in a swing seat and having a young family. And there are various of us, Representative Joe Rice and I, back in the House, we talked about forming the Young Dads Club and have some meetings and everything. We never actually met because we never had time to meet. If we were not in committee until 8 o'clock some night, we were running home to tuck a kid into bed, see a kid for the first time in 24 hours because we had been down here doing stuff. But not just during session, but also working other jobs and also campaigning hard, not just to win the seat, but also to make sure that we talk to the constituents that really made a difference. It's true, my kids have quite literally grown up down here at the Colorado State Capitol. I think Kennedy was 1.5 when I was first appointed, Braden just about 1.5 years older than that. So those two have known not very much else. And our little guy, Griffin, actually, if I remember correctly, it was opening day of 2009, and Tammy says to me, we're on the floor of the house, opening day, all the pomp and circumstance, and Tammy says, we need to go talk. And in a way that you don't always want to hear your wife say, we need to go talk. So we went up into the gallery of the house while everything else was going down on, and she told me that we were going to have our third child. We were I remember it very clearly, because I don't remember that being in the plans of having a third child. But so Griffin quite literally has known nothing other than his dad serving down here. When Senator Fields mentioned my work and advocacy for women's groups, part of that is because I have a daughter, but part of that is also because I have two sons, and I think it's important to make sure that my daughter has all the rights and responsibilities that my sons have growing up, and I also want to make sure that my sons have a good role model in how to grow up and how to be advocates for things that they might not naturally do. So I definitely want to thank my wife, my kids, who are all three are in school. Education is very important to our family. Tammy was actually late coming down today because she was advocating at one of our schools today for what's best for all the kids in that school. And that's something that's just wired into the family. But I could only serve down here because my entire family has put up with a lot and allowed me to serve and to do that. One of the funny stories, you've all seen me wear this tie. I wear this tie a lot. It is by far my favorite tie. I did not own this tie on the day that I was sworn into the House, and none of my family was there. My immediate family, my wife and kids, 2 kids at that time, were not with me on the day I was sworn into the House, because they were in Washington, D.C. at a social studies conference I was supposed to be at. But Speaker Romanoff and Majority Leader Madden insisted that I needed to be sworn in on that Friday to vote for what would become Referendum I. And my family was in D.C. They went to the Smithsonian and they bought this tie and gave it to me when they got back. And so it's always been a special tie for me. I think it also helps the colors and patterns help represent my district with a lot of different ideas, and sometimes it's difficult to represent all those different ideas down here. Like I said, I'm not going to go through and thank everyone individually. I have to thank Lois for all of her years of service and friendship and keeping me on my toes. And we are having a disagreement right now on policy stuff, and yet we still love each other very much. And it wouldn't be us if we always agreed 100%. And Lucia, thank you for all the kindness and leadership and mentorship you've shown me over the years, and especially the last couple of years as we've gotten to know each other really well. I do need to thank the nonpartisan staff here in the Capitol for all of the work they do. And again, not going to name all of them that have helped me and been special to me, but if I didn't mention Marilyn back in the House from day one, she's on the side of everyone making sure that they can do the best job that they can in their district, and she has become a great friend over the years. Julie, Corey, Rachel, thank you for all of the work and kindness and dedication to all of my bills and amendments over the years. And to my staff, I thank Lois already. Doug has been mentioned several times. And if you don't know him, he's great. And if anyone needs an aide for next year, no, I don't think. I think he's moving on. But just wonderful friends. Shakti, Skylar. See, I start naming people, and then I know I'm going to forget someone. But Jackie, Aaron, Blaine, Todd, all of these great people who have helped me through the years. So, Senator Merrifield, if I could borrow your song real quick, I'll just go through that. What? No, trust me, you do not want me singing. But thank you one and all. And at times, I'm going to miss some of you. And and with that, please remember, don't park in the bike lane. Don't park your car in the bike lane. And it is 3 feet. It is 3 feet you're supposed to give the cyclist. 3 feet. Thank you, Senator Corr. No, 3 feet's bigger than that. So thank you all very much. And thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kerr. Thank you, Mr. President. We do have this outgoing award. It references Senator Andy Kerr, Representative 2006 to 2012, and Senator 2013 to 2018. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you. Congratulations, Senator Kerr. Best wishes. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Both of you? Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege. I believe by the good senator from Arapahoe County, District 26, and it may also involve Senator from District 12, El Paso County.
The motion is to proceed out of order for a moment of personal privilege by Senators Kagan and Gardner. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it and proceed out of order. Senator Kagan, Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege on behalf of the senator from Arapahoe County and myself.
Granted to both of you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is a bittersweet day in the history of the state of Colorado and our constant pursuit of justice, because today, or shortly after today, we will be losing the services of a great public servant, Doug Wilson. And in honor of that moment, Senator Gardner and I would like to start by reading to you the plaque, which is going to be our privilege to present to the public defender, Doug Wilson, later on. It reads as follows in part, and then Senator Gardner will read the second part of it. The Senate and House of Representatives convened in the second regular session of the 71st General Assembly hereby extend warmest gratitude and commendation to Douglas K. Wilson. Doug Wilson has spent over 30 years of his legal career as a public defender, representing indigent clients throughout the state of Colorado, serving 17 years in Pueblo, Colorado. Doug was appointed as the Colorado State Public Defender in 2006 and has led the office through many challenges, including the 2008 budgetary crisis, all the while maintaining and building the Office of the State Public Defender's reputation for being one of the best providers of indigent defense in the nation. Doug has been honored to receive multiple awards throughout the years by defense organizations, recognizing his ongoing dedication to the defense of the criminally accused.
Doug has also served as a member and vice chair of the Colorado Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice, CCJJ, leading discussions on the reform of the mandatory parole system, the bail system, the behavioral health system, and the criminal sentencing structure. Doug has advocated tirelessly for the rights of the indigent accused at the Colorado legislature and across agencies throughout the state, and has continued to be a voice for the humane treatment of the mentally ill and disenfranchised Coloradans. Doug has devoted decades of work to give power to our pledge to provide justice for all, and will be retiring from his public service effective August 1st, 2018. The Colorado General Assembly recognizes and expresses our appreciation to Douglas K. Wilson for his years of dedication and commitment to excellence in the representation of the indigent criminally accused in Colorado. On request of Senator Daniel Kagan, Senator Bob Gardner, Representative Pete Lee, and Representative Mike Weissman, given the 7th day of May 2018 at the state capitol, Denver, Colorado, signed by the President of the Senate, Kevin J. Grantham, and the Speaker of the House, Crisanta Joran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, many of you know Doug Wilson, and he comes across sometimes as kind of gruff and scrappy. But you know, your mother told you to beware of people who are camouflaged as kind and gentle, but were actually, in reality, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Well, Doug is a sheep in wolf's clothing, I can tell you. Very kind, gentle, compassionate man who really cares about those that nobody else cares about. And that is what you don't immediately see when you meet Doug, but you certainly see it when you see him work and you get to know him. Doug understands that we are all more than our worst ever moment. A murderer is not just a murderer. They are a human being who has done terrible thing. And Doug understands that about human beings. He understands that it is relatively easy to take a stand and take the side of somebody who is popular, a widow, an orphan, a victim. But what is much harder is to take the stand and try and present the human side of somebody who is unpopular, like the criminal accused. That takes a deep heart. That takes a very good spirit. And that takes a deep faith in humanity that Doug has presented for years and years and years. Doug understands and is prepared to put his personal popularity aside to make sure that because of having a vigorous defense, people who have done bad things are not punished more harshly than they deserve. That those people who have made mistakes are not denied forever the opportunity to reform and reconstruct their lives so that justice can be done. Doug is a true humanitarian who understands not only those of us who do not make mistakes, but those of us who do as well, and is willing to make sure that we are all treated with justice. As Doug has repeated, as we have all repeated, this should be a nation with justice for all, and nobody has devoted more energy and self-sacrifice to achieving that than Doug Wilson. It has been an honor to know you, Doug. Through the many years I've had the absolute privilege of working with you. For 9 or 10 years now, on the House Judiciary Committees and the House Judiciary Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee. It has been my privilege to get your perspective and get your input as we seek to preserve justice for all. And I am very, very grateful to have known you and to have watched you work.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, we live in the greatest country in the world because we, as citizens, ensure the rule of law and representation for everyone, including the indigent. And Doug has led to ensure that those who cannot afford counsel have counsel, have more than adequate counsel, have the best counsel available. And throughout the 10 years that I've served on the House or the Senate Judiciary Committee, Doug has advocated for public defenders, for what they do, and he's done so with respect for his adversaries on the prosecutorial side, with concern that that system, not just public defenders, but the entire system, operates to the benefit not only of the accused, but to the benefit of the people of Colorado, because above all, the rule of law and due process are what matter, and I believe are what matter to Doug Wilson. We're going to miss you, Doug. I stayed throughout this presentation for you. It's a long-standing joke. I want to note that Doug is joined by his wife, Doyle Forrestal, this morning, and we want to hopefully have a moment, even if we can't recess, to greet them and thank them. And we hope that you have time together now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Fields. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to share some comments regarding how I know Doug Wilson. First of all, I want to thank him for his leadership. When I think about 30-year career, that is very, very impressive. So I want to thank you for everything that you've done for the state of Colorado. I met Mr. Wilson shortly after the murder of my son. Now, I did not know that much about the criminal justice system, but I know that the DA was responsible for prosecuting the case as it related to the death of my son, the murder of my son, and then on the other side, we had the public defender's office that was defending the folks that murdered my son, but they had to do that because our Constitution says that if you don't have the money to pay, then you're going to be afforded with a public defender. And I can tell you what I know about the public defenders that tried my son's case and the work that I've seen them do here under the dome is that they do not shy away from their role as public defense counsel. I've seen them work very, very hard on some very complicated cases. I represent the district of, well, at the time it was House District 42 and now Senate District 29, so there were very high-profile cases. We had my son's murder, so we had Samario Owens, Robert Ray, and Parrish Carter. I saw their work, and I've come to appreciate their work because that's how our criminal justice system is set up. So I just want you to know, Mr. Wilson, that you've taught me some things over the years. I did not always agree with your tactics or your understanding, but I've matured in my understanding as it relates to your role in criminal justice. What I know about your team under this dome is that they are zealous, they are relentless as it relates to making sure that we protect due process for all people, despite the color of their skins. So I just wanted to let you know that I consider you a friend. And whenever I had issues or concerns as it relates to policies or laws that were going to impact people of color or to impact people that couldn't pay, then you always gave me your side of the story. I also consulted with the DA. They gave me their side of the story. And I can tell you that both the DA's and the Public Defender's Office are really important to the work that we do to make sure that we're always making sure that the scales of justice are balanced. We are going to miss you. I'm going to miss our conversations, but I hope that I can still stay in touch. All the best to you in your new endeavors.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, while I didn't know Director Wilson directly, I want to express my appreciation for the value and the importance of the work of the Colorado Public Defender's Office. And if you've been at the helm for the last 12 years, I believe, then you're doing a great job with that office. And in particular, I want to do a shout out for the staff and the staff attorneys, the public defender attorneys. In particular, this year, they were a tremendous help in terms of policy dealing with an issue related to human trafficking. And for that, I am very grateful to you, sir, your office, and your staff attorneys. Thank you.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we're going to do some work here, probably 30 to 45 minutes of work, which will start with a special orders calendar. If you would please look at your Senate calendar for today, the bottom of page 2, there is a general orders second reading of bills consent calendar listed for tomorrow, Tuesday. That calendar includes 2 bills, Senate Bill 280 and 276. In order to pass, they need to reach second reading today. In conferring with the minority leader, he has agreed that we can take up these 4 bills. So at this time, Mr. President, I move the Senate proceed out of order and take up a special order second reading of bills calendar at the hour of 12:41 a.m. to include Senate Bill 280 and the Appropriations Committee Report, 276 and its Appropriation Committee Report, House Bill 1418 and the Finance Committee Report, along with House Bill 1437.
The motion is to take up a special orders second reading of bills calendar, consent calendar, at the hour of 12:41 a.m., consisting of Senate Bills 280, 276, House Bills 1418, 1437. Majority Leader Holbert.
Mr. President, I amend my motion, and I believe your recitation of it, it is actually 12:41 p.m. rather than a.m.
Darn it. Well, if we gotta. That will be at 12:41 p.m. The motion is for a special order second reading of bills calendar with the bills listed at 12:41 p.m. This requires a 2/3 vote over all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. Ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. And the Senate will take up a special order second reading of bills consent calendar at 12:41 p.m. Special order second reading of bills, consent calendar, Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
The motion is for the Senate to resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the special order second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. The ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the special order second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Smallwood will take the chair.
Committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to all the bills on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar?
Senate Bill 280 by Senator Lambert and Representative Hamner concerning a transfer from the general fund of the tobacco litigation settlement cash fund to be allocated to the program services and funds that currently receive tobacco litigation settlement money. Senate Bill 276 by Senators Lundberg and Lambert and Representatives Hamner and Young concerning an increase in the general fund reserve. House Bill 1418 by Representative Weissman and Senators Corman and Kagan concerning the use of criminal convictions in employment. House Bill 1437 by Representative Harrod and Senator Neville concerning eliminating the requirement that a person who participates in college-level academic programs through the correctional education program in the Department of Corrections must bear entirely the costs associated with such programs.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the 4 bills listed on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. Senate Bill 280, along with the Appropriations Committee report. Senate Bill 276 and its Appropriation Committee report. House Bill 1418 and the Finance Committee report, and House Bill 1437.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the special order second reading bills consent calendar? Seeing none, motion for the body is the adoption of all the committee reports. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the special order second reading bills consent calendar? Seeing none, motion for the body is the adoption of all the bills on the special order second reading bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Those bills pass. Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion for the bodies to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We'll rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Aguilar to the roll. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committees had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, committee whole lead reports had in consideration the following test bills being second read. There were mixed flag recommendations to run. Senate Bill 280 is amended. Bill 276 is amended. Passed second read order. Growth place calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1418 is amended. House Bill 1437 passed second reading and order revised place calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Smallwood.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion for the body is the adoption of the report to the committee of the whole. Are there any no votes? 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused. The committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 280 is amended. Senate Bill 276 is amended. Passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1418 is amended. House Bill 1437 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Third reading of bills. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1379? Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over House Bill 1379 to Tuesday, May 8th.
Motion is to lay over 1379 to Tuesday, May 8th. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it, and that will lay over. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of Senate Bill 277?
Senate Bill 277 by Senator Neville and Representative Bobono Van Winkle concerning the exemption of virtual currency from regulation under the Money Transmitters Act.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 277 and third final reading and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I wanted to clarify some things regarding previous debate. There's been a large concern regarding consumer protection on this bill. And we did adopt amendments which basically clarify. So right now, 277 still has consumer protections in place. The bill clearly does not include under this exemption an open blockchain that is marketed as an investment. If you go to page 3, lines 23 to line 25 of the reenacted amendment, excuse me, the latest version of the bill, you will see that there's not an exemption from the marketing as an investment. So because of this, the Securities Commission has the ability to continue its course in regard to consumer protections if anyone tries to market these utility tokens as an investment to a consumer. So, Mr. President, I urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 277. Are there any no votes? Senator Crowder, Senator Priola, Senator Martinez-Humenic, Senator John, Senator Merrifield, Leader Garcia, Senator Kerr, Senator Court, Senator Todd, Senator Williams, Senator Aguilar, Senator Guzman, Senator Donovan, Senator Kagan, Senator Kafalas, Senator Fields, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Quorum, Senator Gardner, with 15 ayes, 20 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 277 is lost. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to House Bill 1309?
House Bill 1309 by Representatives Coleman and Wilson and Senator Hill concerning programs addressing educator shortages and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1309.
Is there any further discussion? Motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1309. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes or absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1309 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Cook, Senator Todd, Senator Scott, Senator Priola, Senator Gardner, Senator Martinez-Humenick, Senator Tate, Senator Merrifield, Senator John, Leader Garcia, Senator Kafalas, Senator Fields, Senator Moreno, Senator Jones, Senator Court, Senator Donovan, Senator Fields, Senator Kerr, Senator Lundberg, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kagan. Please add the President. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted with all of you on the prevailing side, I move for the immediate reconsideration of House Bill 1309.
The motion is to proceed to the immediate reconsideration of House Bill 1309. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we'll proceed to immediate reconsideration. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Bill 1309?
House Bill 1309 by Representatives Coleman and Wilson and Senator Hill concerning programs addressing educator shortages in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Hill.
Mr. President, I move House Bill 1309 again.
Is there any further discussion? The motion for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1309. Are there any no votes? Senator Neville, Senator Marvel. With 33 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1309 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder. You don't need to do it again. I think we've always done it that way. Yeah. Actually, starting right now, we're going to have to do it again. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the Senate Bill 272?
Senate Bill 272 by Senators Martinez-Humenick and Todd and Representatives Carver McLaughlin concerning suicide prevention training in schools and in connection with making an appropriation.
Senator Martinez-Humenick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 18272, and we also move Senate Bill 272 on third and final reading and ask for your aye votes.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 272. Are there any no votes? Senator Neville, Senator Marvel, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Smallwood, Majority Leader Holbert, Senator Hill, Senator Cook, with 27 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 272 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Kafalis, Senator Moreno, Senator Donovan, Senator Cort, Senator Aguilar, Senator Kerr, Senator Fenberg, Senator Merrifield, Senator Fields, Leader Garcia, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Jones, Senator Williams, Senator Priola, Senator Coram, Senator Crowder, Senator Tate, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions.
Motion is for the Senate to proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the Senate will proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to... Please read the title of the House Joint Resolution 1018.
House Joint Resolution 1018 by Representatives Sagin and Neville and Senators Marble and Garcia concerning honoring Gold Star families.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move House Joint Resolution 18-1018 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Carpenter.
House Joint Resolution 1018 concerning honoring Gold Star families. Whereas, since the Revolutionary War, more than 1 million American soldiers have died in battle and military conflicts, their families, who have endured these losses and the accompanying grief, are known as Gold Star families. And whereas, named for the practice of families hanging service banners in the windows of their homes with a star for each family member in the armed forces, deep blue stars were displayed for each living member serving, and they were replaced with gold if their loved one lost his or her life serving our country and protecting our freedom. And whereas Grace Darling Siebold founded the American Gold Star Mothers in 1928, her son, George, was serving in World War I, and while he was abroad, she channeled her worry into visiting hospitalized veterans. When the letters from her son stopped arriving and she learned of his death, she took action in her grief and with a group of mothers established American Gold Star Mothers Incorporated. And whereas, since 1936, Gold Star Mother's Day has been honored through presidential proclamation as the last Sunday of each September. And whereas, the acts of heroism and the stories of courage of each fallen soldier are forever remembered in the minds and hearts of their families. And whereas, while national monuments and memorials serve as strong, visible reminders for the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, Gold Star families are a living legacy of each fallen soldier and can help us all remember and honor these heroes by name. And whereas, long after the battles have ended, as our stars and stripes of liberty fly, the families who have at home a folded flag and an empty seat at the table deserve our respect and our support. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, honor the pride and the pain of the parents and partners and children and siblings of our fallen heroes and recognize the families of these proud patriots with an expression of profound gratitude and respect. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to the commanders of the American Legion posts in Colorado, the commanders of the Veterans of Foreign Wars posts in Colorado, the commanders of Colorado's active military bases, the Pikes Peak chapter of Gold Star Mothers, the Denver chapter of Gold Star Wives, and the chapters of the Blue Star Mothers of Colorado.
Thank you, members. You may be seated. Senator Marble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
I would like to remind everybody that the Gold Star families and moms were at the Military Appreciation Day, therefore they aren't here today. But we never really got to pass this in the Senate, so today's the day that we honor those families and those soldiers and Marines and service members that are so greatly missed. I would like to write to read you a poem. It was written by Roger J. Robichaud, Specialist 5, U.S. Army. It's called I Stand Before You, and this is in tribute to those who have left and those who were left behind. I stand before you all today, but not one eye can see my way. My time arrived to leave this earth, a fact so planned to every birth. It happened where I had to go. My torch for life was so aglow. I transferred while in uniform, protecting freedom through a storm. Should I resent I died for you? Not on my life, red, white, and blue. Please. Please help my family through each day. Tell all my friends, try not to stray. And of the country I did love, do think of me through God above. Your memories brought forth this day. Send love to us who could not stay.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. It gives me great honor to join my colleague here in presenting this resolution, HJR 1018. I know the hour is getting later, but it does give us a great appreciation that you would be mindful of the importance of this such resolution. I remember when I was deployed to Iraq in 2003, seeing all those who would display the yellow ribbons, as you recall, remembering families who were leaving and taking note that people were mindful. As you think now of how long this country has been at war in regards to war on terrorism and the efforts in Afghanistan and other areas, it's really important to remember the sacrifices that our American heroes in all the branches of service take day in and day out, and to ultimately have the highest sacrifice on behalf of this nation. This is what we're here in this resolution, calling for the importance of remembering the Gold Star families. So we ask for your aye vote, and thank you for taking the time to recognize the importance of this.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I rise in support of this resolution. I do believe it is a very appropriate action on our part to honor those families who were left behind. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind us again that it was just 1 week ago today that one more Colorado family joined those ranks as a Gold Star family. And I want to personally acknowledge them again. And I know over this past week, as my wife has spoken with Donna Condi, the mom, many times, it's a real deep tragedy and grief that they go through, and the struggle, and of course I speak of Specialist Gabe Condi, who died a week ago, and I want to mention that his father Bob, who's very proud of his son, who showed such patriotism and such courage and such dedication and commitment, and as we unfold some of the layers of that young man's life, we see a true patriot and hero in so many ways. And I think also of his sisters, of Olivia, who was the young lady who served here in the Senate as an intern for several years, and his youngest sister Priscilla, as they all grieve. And it just brings home again how important it is for all of us to never forget those who made that ultimate sacrifice, and never forget to support those families who are left here to grieve. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the bill sponsors for presenting this resolution today. As you know, Sunday is Mother's Day. And so I'm thinking about these moms, these Gold Star mothers who are celebrating this day without their loved ones. I just want them to know that we will never forget them for the life that was lost during active military service. Thank you.
The question before the body is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1018. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Joint Resolution 1018 is adopted. Senator Marble.
Thank you so very much. And I was just going to ask that this morning's roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Without objection, this morning roll call will all be added as co-sponsors. I don't know. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1021.
House Joint Resolution 1021 by Representatives Becker, Kay, and Neville, and Senators Holbert and Garcia concerning changes to the deadline set out in the joint rules of the Senate and House of Representatives for the 2019 legislative session.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move HJR 181021.
Is there any discussion on House Joint Resolution 1021? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, next year something somewhat odd will need to occur here in the General Assembly. Those who are midterm here in the Senate, you will very likely be here for day one of the 2019 session. Those who are up for election this year may or may not be returning. And then, of course, all 65 seats in the House are up for election. But today, we have the opportunity to designate the first day of the first regular session of the 72nd General Assembly, this being the second regular session of the 71st. Every 4 years, the legislature, the General Assembly, is charged by the Constitution to confirm, to ratify the election results of the governor, the Attorney General, Secretary of State, and the Treasurer. Those people will be sworn in on Tuesday, January 9th, if I remember, the following Tuesday. So if we came here and convened, or if the General Assembly convened, on the second Wednesday, which is somewhat customary, that would be the day after the governor and the other statewides are elected. Now, the Constitution says that we will meet on or before, we will convene, the General Assembly will convene on or before 10 a.m. of the second Wednesday of the year following the election. So that would be the second Wednesday of January, the day after the governor has to be sworn in, and the other statewides. So our other choice, if we meet on, or I don't want to be presumptuous, if the General Assembly begins on a Wednesday, would be Wednesday, January 2nd, which is entirely possible. However, those of you who live outside of the Metro Denver area and who might rent an apartment or something, second housing, you might be entering a lease on the 1st of January. You might be moving into your accommodations then. Maybe you have done that earlier. But it seemed with the Executive Committee that having the first day of next session be on January 2nd was pushing things a bit. So we wondered, would there be a better day? We have to meet before the governor is sworn in the other statewides. So when is the best day? The Executive Committee then decided that Friday, January 4th is the day that we would propose, and the House has already adopted this. If we do that, then the session would still be 120 days long, and you would end on, I believe, the first Friday in May next year. However, if you read through House Joint Resolution 1021, you'll see that there are a lot of deadlines. For instance, those of you who will be returning next year, your deadline typically would be December 1st for have your first two bill titles ready to, or in drafting and somewhat ready to introduce. Newly elected members, that generally would be December 15th. So if we start on January 4th, we not only have to look at deadlines through the session, but also before the session, and that's what 1021 proposes. It looks back from the first day of session, the deadlines for bills to be introduced and such things, and then as the session starts, all of the deadlines that we deal with throughout the session. So I just wanted to point it out to you and explain why we are proposing that the General Assembly start on a Friday rather than the customary Wednesday. The first year that I was in the House, those of you who might have been there in 2011, I think that the folks downstairs and leadership between the two chambers realized that this forethought had not been considered, and we actually came in, I think, right after the governor was sworn in, which ignored the constitutional responsibility to actually certify or ratify those election results. That's why, and sometimes it gets overlooked because it only happens every 4 years. Sometimes it might be overlooked because of staff changes, but we want to make sure that we have this right, and that is why we are proposing Friday, January 4th, 2019, and the resulting date changes. Ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, for all those reasons eloquently stated by the Majority Leader. Obviously, we had a lot of ample discussion about this in the Executive Committee and been mulling it over for weeks. We believe this is the best course of action, so I too would ask for an aye vote.
See no further discussion. The question before us is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1021. Are there any no votes? Senator Jones. Sorry, I didn't mean to snicker. Any other no votes? Senator Gardner. With 33 ayes, 2 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Joint Resolution 1021 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Tate. Senator Kafalis. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over consideration of memorials till Tuesday, May 8th.
Question before us is to lay over the consideration of memorials portion of the calendar until Tuesday, May 8th. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate memorials will be laid over. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over consideration of House amendments to Senate bills to follow consideration of conference committee reports.
Motion is to lay over consideration of House amendments to Senate bills until after consideration of conference committee reports. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over general order second reading of bills to follow consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar.
The question before us is to lay over second reading general orders of bills until after consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read those up for appointment under the consent calendar.
Members of the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission for terms expiring August 1st, 2020. James Michael Wilson of Superior, Colorado, to serve as representative from the regulated community as an unaffiliated, reappointed. Garrett Clemens of Denver, Colorado, to serve as representative from the public at large and as Republican, reappointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar consisting of members of the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission.
Is there any other discussion? Senator Martinez-Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make mention that when we have these appointments, I'm just wanting to share with everyone that there was some concern with the process with this one particular appointee here. And after many discussions with the governor's office and with the folks who are actually here. I will be supporting the consideration of these governor's appointments, but what I would like to say to anyone who wants to be a part of any of our commissions or our boards, please come in and realize that this is a job interview that you are actually coming in to when you come into our committees. All the committees are different, but in Health and Human Services, we do ask questions, and we hope that they will be answered. So I just had to say that at the mic today because it's very important these folks realize that this is important, because they're not going to be the ones that get the phone calls if somebody's unhappy with their work. It will be those of us sitting in this chamber. So I will be an aye vote today, but I just wanted to make sure that the folks out there that are going to participate realize that they need to be actively engaged if you're asked questions. And if you don't know the answer, please just let us know that you don't. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a situation in HHS where an individual come up and he was very brief on his comments, and there was questions of whether or not he was answering fully, but the reality is the CDHP was coaching them to hurry up because they thought we were short on time. And coming to find out, the individual is a very good board member, but there was some confusion on how to approach, the members of HHS to quantify them. So after checking the individual out, I will be an aye vote on this. But it is we thank them for being brief, but at times there's a point where you can be too brief. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the appointees to the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission. Are there any no votes? Senator Kafalis, are you a no vote on both of them? Are there any other no votes? With 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, James Michael Wilson of Superior is confirmed. With 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Garrett Clemens of Denver is confirmed. House has requested a conference committee on House Bill 18-1256 by Senator Gardner. The appointments will be Senator Gardner as chair, Senator Cook, and Senator Kagan. We are now to second reading of bill. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over general or second reading of bills to follow consideration of conference committees' reports.
Okay, question before us is to lay over second reading of bills, general orders till after consideration of conference committee reports. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those who no say no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Consideration of conference committee reports. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 68. I apologize. I was doing Tuesday. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1270.
House Bill 1270 by Representatives Hanson, Becker, J, and Senator Tate concerning energy storage and in connection therewith requiring the Public Utilities Commission to establish mechanisms for investor-owned electric utilities to procure energy storage systems if certain criteria are satisfied.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adopt the conference committee report from the first conference committee on House Bill 1270.
Please tell us a little bit about it.
I'm happy to at your request. The conference committee was passed out. The conference committee report was passed by the committee by unanimous vote. The representative, who is the prime sponsor of the bill, came up with streamlined language associated with the provisions around the Public Utilities Commission creating rules by which information can be shared to third parties related to developing energy storage systems. Urge and I vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the first report from the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1270. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the first report from the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1270 is adopted. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the readoption of House Bill 1270.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the readoption of House Bill 1270. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1270 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 179.
Senate Bill 179 by Senators Hill and Williams represents Hooten and Pabon concerning adjustments to total gross purchases for purposes of calculating the excise tax on tobacco products.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the first Conference Committee report for Senate Bill 179. Colleagues, what we did here, we had a unique opportunity. If you remember, we came back and asked for your permission to go beyond the scope. We found, originally this was a tax credit coming out of the Senate. In working with the House, we're able to find a way to do this so it's no longer a tax credit. It's now an adjustment on your taxes. So that really reduced the cost to Department of Revenue. It gave us a new solution to a problem we've been working on for a while. We're excited. We cut down the fiscal note on this, and colleagues ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the first report from the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 179. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, first report from the First Conference Committee on Senate Bill 179 is adopted. Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I move Senate Bill 18179 and ask you for a favorable recommendation.
Question before us is the readoption of Senate Bill 179 on. Is there any no votes? Senator Jones, Senator Zenzinger, Senator Fields, Senator Kafalas, Senator Court, Senator Moreno, Senator Kagan, Senator Kerr, Senator Merrifield, Senator Donovan, with 25 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 179 is readopted. Co-sponsors. We will stand in a senatorial 5. Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate take up consideration of conference committee reports.
Can we do this first real quick, Mr. Majority Leader?
Mr. President, you are in charge. You do what you think you need to do first, and then we'll come back to my motion.
Message from the House.
The House has passed the third reading transmitted of revised statutes. House Bill 1431. The House has passed the third reading transmitted of revised statutes. House Bill 1060, 1102, 1195, 1423, 1434, 1390, 1421, 1424, 1428, 1230, 1351. Amendments printed in the House Journal, May 4, 2018. The House has passed the third reading transmitted of revised statutes. House Bill 1430, 1057. Amendments printed in the House Journal, May 4, 2018. Amendment of the third reading is printed in the House Journal, May 7, 2018. The House has passed the third reading transmitted of revised statutes. House Bill 1436. Amendments printed in the House Journal, May 4, 2018. The House has passed the third reading and returns herewith. Senate Bill 206, 210, 254, 267, and 229. The House has passed the third reading and returns herewith. Senate Concurrent Resolution 4. The House has passed the third reading and transmitted of revised statutes. Senate Concurrent Resolution 5. Amendments printed in the House Journal, May 4, 2018. Now this is passed on third reading, transmitted to the revised statutes, Senate Bill 231, 252, 249, 250, 251, 261, 22, 234. Minute is printed in the House Journal, May 4th, 2018.
It appears the House just figured out there was only 3 days left. Message from the reviser.
We hear with transmit without comment as amended. House Bill 1436. We hear with transmit without comment as amended. House Bill 1057, 1060, 1102, 1195, 1230, 1351, 1390, 1421, 1423, 1424, 1428, 1430, and 1434. We hear with transmit without comment as amended. Second concurrent resolution 5 without comment as amended. Senate Bill 22, 145, 231, 234, 249, 250, 251, 252, and 268 without comments as amended. House Bill 1431.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Actually, I don't need to do
We're still under conference committee reports. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that the second conference committee on Senate Bill 15 be granted permission to go beyond the scope of differences.
Question before us is actually we're going to have you tell us why you might like to go to beyond the scope of the differences. Senator Gardner.
Thank you. Well, actually, members, we had a first conference committee, and both the House and the Senate were in agreement, and that was very short work. Later that day, we were consulted by the governor's staff and asked a question concerning the contents of the bill with the conference committee report as to why, and not to go into too many details, but why one of the declarations in the verified motion was that way. And it basically had stayed in the bill from its first version. So we agreed with House conferees that we wanted to take that particular statement out of the bill. They rejected the first conference committee report over in the House. We have appointed a second conference committee, and because the item is not something that is a difference between the House and Senate at this time, we need permission to go beyond the scope to fix that.
So the question before us then is to allow the second conference committee on Senate Bill 15 to go beyond the scope of the differences. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I want to give you a quick understanding of how the rest of the day is going to go. We are going to recess. Appropriations will meet 15 minutes after recess. There is an Appropriations Committee meeting scheduled upon adjournment in Senate Committee Room 357. There are bills, 6 bills listed at the top of page 5, which are the calendar as listed, and appropriations will meet. I believe the Minority Caucus has an event that they're going to conduct outside of the chamber, and then we're going to come back at 2:30 for the Olympians. If you remember, we talked last Friday. We have Olympians coming to visit the House and the Senate. We will reconvene here in the Senate chamber at 2:30. I don't plan on doing business at 2:30. We're going to meet the Olympians, offer some tributes. We're going to recess then, and then Finance and State Appropriations will then go to committee for their list of bills. Then, State Affairs and Finance, will meet for the afternoon committees upon the adjournment of that afternoon session with the Olympians. Then, when they finish their calendar, we're coming back to the floor tonight for second reading and probably a special orders calendar that could include bills that come out of committee today. So we're going to take a break. Appropriations will meet. We're going to come back here at 2:30 for half hour. We'll recess. Committees will meet. And then we're coming back here tonight. I don't know what time. It'll depend on when State Affairs and Finance finish their calendar. I will step out of the way, Mr. President. It looks like the Chair of Appropriations has an announcement.
Announcements. Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief addendum to what the Majority Leader said about the Appropriations Committee meeting happening at a maximum 15 minutes after we adjourn. If you're all there sooner, we can get this done quicker. However, House Bill 1076, the first bill on the calendar, will not be heard.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate recess until 2:30 p.m. today.
Question before us is to recess until 2:30 p.m. today. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We stand in recess.